Positioning in CSS. The position property specifies the type of positioning method used for an element. There are four different position values: static, relative, fixed, and absolute. Elements are then positioned using the top, bottom, left, and right properties. These properties work only if position property is set first and depending on the position value. Let's just quickly open an example and try to understand this. Before we go to the example, there is a topic called as overlapping. Let's go through the topic of overlapping elements. Elements can overlap other elements when they are positioned. Now they are determined by a z-index property that specifies the stack order of an element. Now the element can have a positive or a negative stack order. Let's jump into the demo now. Now let's try to understand this particular page. First, let's try to understand the contents of the page. If you can see that there happens to be this particular h1 happens to be, this is a heading, and this is again this particular tree, and it says that the h index happens to be -1. And just because it has the z index as -1, it will be placed behind. So that's what we mean. So since the z index property specifies the stack order of the element, and since it is specified as negative, so the tree appears to be behind. Now the next happens to be static. The element with position static is not positioned in a special way, but it is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. So this is nothing but the static position relative to its normal position. So this particular div has a position relative, and a fixed elements will appear something like this. Even if you scroll the page, it will stay on the page. Example, if you would like to say I will scroll the page, but you can always see that this thing is always positioned at the same. Now the next one is absolute. You can find in that absolute is that this particular element position is absolute with respect to this particular element, and it is not with respect to that particular viewport, but it is with respect to the nearest position ancestor. Now if we go ahead and look at how this styling is being done, we can see that static is being done with the property as position being static, the relative position being relative, and for the fixed position being fixed, and for the position being absolute here. The z index for that particular image is specified as -1, and hence it is appearing that it will be placed behind the tree. The image has been placed behind the tree. Lastly, we would like to understand that how do we use this entire CSS to design the layout of a complete web page. So let's switch to the next example to see that this is being rendered here, and as you can see, let's try to understand the contents first. So you can find that these are the contents which are specified to the left, and this exists in an element called as nav. The section has a heading called as h1, and you can find it here. The contents are being separated by two paragraphs, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. The footer looks something like this with a black background. And how does it have a black background? Just by specifying this as a footer tag? It is not that, but there is a CSS which is being applied to the footer tag. Similarly, the CSS is applied to the nav. CSS is applied to the section as well. So let's look at that. If you see here, you will be able to find that for the header, the color has been made black, the background color, the foreground has been white, the text alignment is center, and that is why this looks something like this. The nav, all the elements which exist here will have all the properties that is concerned. This one property, float left, this one property called as float left, makes this particular things appear in this side of the screen. Similarly, the section is this particular thing happens to be section, and lastly in the footer you will find the background color being black, the foreground color being white, and the text alignment being center again. So this is how CSS can be used along with the elements, HTML elements, to create a web page and also design the layout of that particular web page, so that this particular layout, if preserved in multiple pages, all the pages are going to look very similar. Thanks for taking time for watching this video, and we have reached the end of the CSS topic.